Hello again, everybody. Welcome into another episode of HBCU Huddle. I am CJ Hurt. Follow me on Twitter at ConRadicalness. Follow me on Blue Sky. I'm at ConRadicalness on that as well. And on Instagram at new_ConRadicalness. Joined alongside, as I always am, by Mike Wallace. Follow him on Twitter at MyMikeCheck. Mike, what's going on, baby?
Hey, everything, man. Everything's going on. And keep following us. You know, we got a great show. Looking forward to a real good, deliberate talk today, man. We got some a great guest coming up, and we got so much more to get to, man. It's the HBCU Huddle again. Thanks for all the love and all the feedback that we keep getting about this show, man. And I'm ready for another one. Let's go. Let's do it.
Absolutely. We're going to talk some about spring football.
Yeah.
Vibe magazine had an interesting article about their favorite or the best guest versus by a female MC in hip-hop history. We'll talk some about that as well. You brought up the special guest we have today. Clyde McGrady, New York Times national correspondent, wrote a great article titled "At Black Colleges, a Stubborn Gender Enrollment Gap Keeps Growing." So we're going to talk to him about some of the difficulties and some of the issues that are arising and have always been there as it pertains to young black men in higher education. I can't wait for that conversation with him. Mike, I'd like to apologize to you right off the bat. I was supposed to bring the Boondocks DVDs. And I keep forgetting to bring them.
Again?
I keep forgetting to bring them. I'm going to bring them next week.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk around with Boondocks DVDs in my backpack. And as soon as I see you, I'm just going to hurl them at you.
Okay.
Just, here you
all
go.
right.
You'll be driving down the street. You'll be driving down the street and be like, what is that package coming into my car? It's Boondocks. CJ must be around. Because I really want to have a conversation with you about all of the Boondocks episodes, particularly seasons 1 through 2.
Yeah.
The first 2 seasons of Boondocks, we talked about it last week.
Okay.
Just incredible TV. Let's start though, Mike. HBCU football is where we spend a lot of our time on this show. It's the off season, but in the off season, in the springtime, we get spring games. We get spring practices and news and stories, and players start to pop and coaches start to share with you some of their philosophies going into the upcoming college football season. I think the season starts. We think the season starts media day. Once media day hits, your season is in full swing. So this would feel more like a preseason type of thing. The spring practices and spring games in college football feel more preseason-y than everything that happens after the media day stuff. So we'll take a look now at some of the dates for some prominent HBCU spring games. April 5th, Jackson State. So that's this Saturday. Jackson State has their spring game. They're the defending champs. Coach T.C. Taylor is going to look to try and get them started off on the right foot. Then you've got April 12th, Bethune-Cookman, North Carolina A&T, North Carolina Central, Alabama A&M, Howard, Texas Southern, and FAMU. That's a whole lot of teams playing on that day. April 17th, which is a Thursday, Prairie View A&M is going to have their spring game on that date. April 19th, Norfolk State, first-year head coach Mike Vick he'll have his first spring game. And then April 26th, right around the corner, one of the teams participating in the Southern Heritage Classic, Arkansas Pine Bluff, will have their spring game. Mike, I want to start with this question. A spring game still important in your eye?
Not in its current form. I get the fact you want to get some players together. You want to have some practices in the spring. You want to work through, what your rotation and some of the young guys are that are going through the matriculation process. I think the transfer portal windows kind of complicate spring as well too. It's
and that's what makes the spring game. That's what's taking some of the importance off of spring game.
Yeah.
Because now coaches at all levels of football are trying to, or all levels of D1 football, are trying their best to keep players from jumping in the portal at this stage of the process.
Right.
So they don't have depth charts anymore, and they don't want an actual spring game, because if I have an actual spring game, that means I have an actual 1 and have an actual 2, and if my 2 realizes he's a 2, he'll hop in that portal.
He'll want to run.
Leave.
Right, he'll want to run. And so I think there's got to be a different way to go about doing it. I do like what Deion Sanders and the coach at Syracuse have been discussing, trying to get 2 teams together. Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to get 2 teams together to play sort of a sort of basically a week 0 type game, right? One that doesn't count in the standings, but you can bring, how NFL teams, when they have training camps, they have the co-practices and they practice together and then they go, play a preseason game. I think that there's something to be said for that. I would love to see, in-state teams, maybe, for instance, if you look at a Tennessee, will get a chance to play at Tennessee State, have them work out against each other and practice together and do some controlled scrimmages in that situation where you're not really trying to beat up on a smaller team. You're giving them an opportunity to come and use your resources to train. And I think it could benefit both institutions in that situation. I think we have to rethink the entire spring football concept. And hopefully there's going to be some changes that come because of that.
I agree on 100% with everything you're saying. I would love to get rid of FCS versus FBS across the board
in the regular schedule.
In the regular season.
Right.
I don't. It's from an FBS standpoint, particularly a power conference standpoint. I don't know how to grade a game, a 50-point win for, random SEC school versus Eastern Tennessee, right? Or East Tennessee. I don't know how to grade that. I don't know what that means. I don't know how good that power conference team is.
Right.
Also, on the FCS side of things, the risk of injury is so much higher for those dudes at the FCS level when they're playing up because they are smaller, they're not as fast. Unfortunately, they're not as physical. And then the resources they have available to them from a health and recovery standpoint is not the same as the school in the Big Ten. The Big Ten, by the way, who's paying everybody close to $100 million just for football revenue.
Yeah,
just football. That's what they're paying each individual school. The whole conference isn't bringing in $100 million. Can you imagine how crazy we'd get if the SWAC or the MEAC or the CIAA or the SEAC brought in $100 million in revenue to split? And they, in the Big Ten, are giving $100 million to Wisconsin, Minnesota, Rutgers, Michigan State, right? Like they're giving that to them. So there is very clearly a discrepancy in quality of athlete and in the resources available to the athlete. So I'm cool with getting rid of FCS versus FBS in the regular season altogether. But we can't because the money that gets involved, right? The buy games. They're buy games for a reason. You're going to go out there and get upwards of, hopefully, if you're doing this right, $400,000, $500,000.
Oh, millions! This is $1 million now.
Everybody's not getting millions.
But that money's there though.
It's there,
and as the money increases, that's what the demand should be.
The demand should absolutely be $1 million. Absolutely. But right now, I'm pretty sure we had HBCUs getting $375 last year. It's just that's what. Hopefully it gets to $1 million. Hopefully they do a better job negotiating, get to $1 million. This is some of what Coach Prime was talking about in 2021, I do believe, with the buy games. Value yourself a bit more than what you're valuing yourself at. But so that's why you're not going to get rid of them because of the buy game. But if we can get that buy game changed to a spring type of situation, where instead of you playing against yourself in a spring game that gets the fans out there, if fans can come out for an entire week and watch you practice, or even hell, just for one game randomly in the spring on a Saturday, you guys get together for that contest. You put the little red jerseys on the quarterback. Everybody know don't hit the quarterback, right? You can do that with some of your star players, some of your premier players. I am pro that, and Coach Prime and I didn't realize he and Coach Babers were talking about it. I know that there was an HBCU coach who quote tweeted the Deion Sanders quote talking about doing a spring game like that, where it is, hey, everybody's together for a week. It was Coach Tremaine Jackson, first-time head coach, discussing Prairie View A&M, right? Talking about as it pertains to doing a week-long practice and then ending with a spring game. He quote tweeted Deion Sanders and said, quote, "I ain't hard to find, would love to be a part." And see, I'm for that. I am for like a Texas Southern going to Colorado and playing in their spring game, and it's good for everybody involved.
Yeah, it is, and you also get to protect. You don't eliminate the risk of injury, but you kind of mitigate the risk of injury in that situation. You have a controlled environment, and you're not out there trying to outscore someone 62-3. Like you're not doing that. This is a development. But if you do get injured in the spring, then you have all spring and summer to recover, so it's not necessarily compromising your July schedule and then getting ready for the regular season in the fall for either side of these schools. So there's flexibility. I mean, if we've seen the transfer portal come into play and impact major college sports the way it has, any of these changes can also happen. You have to just be smarter with this. Spring football, even as a media member, like that was always
you covered some
I've covered spring football, and I never all throughout. Like I covered it in the SEC.
FAMU.
Well, I covered it in the SEC.
Okay.
I covered it in Black college sports. I've covered it in the ACC. Right. So spring football is it's not that you're writing about guys that you don't necessarily have written about coming off the previous season because new guys are taking new positions. It's a lot of hopeful, publication of different things from that and promotion. And I think it could be a more it could be a more constructive way to go about organizing your time and getting yourself ready for the football season. I'm not saying scrap it because you need all of those moments that you can athletically, but in terms of where it is right now in the traditional landscape, by the time you get to the spring game, it gets boring like maybe a quarter into it. Like you're just looking at, third string guys just making big plays and the whistle's blowing. It's hot out there, and it's not much to keep you going. If you're watching it from that standpoint or covering it.
And I know some schools have gotten completely away from the spring game being an actual football game.
Yeah.
And even gotten away from it being situational football.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the Memphis spring game last year. I want to say the University of Memphis spring game. We're in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
I live in Orange Mound. We can walk to Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, hang out, and then walk back home. And so that's what we did. It was nice enough out. Just wanted to be outside and wanted to see something cool. Mm-hmm. And they were doing like contests with fans in the stands. They were, here's 5 plays, whistle, dance break, everybody come out here and dance against one of the players. And again, it goes to, because you brought it up several times and you're right, it goes to the transfer portal. You don't want guys to know where they are on the depth chart because you're fearful that they'll transfer and that'll hurt your depth. And so I'm pretty sure Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are done with spring games. I think it's just like a football carnival where fans can come out, meet and greet with the players, and have some silly little 3-legged races.
It's like a fan fest. It's a fan day. Yeah.
So if that's what it's going to become, you need it. I think you absolutely need it. Let's change it up a bit to do what Coach Prime is saying and what you said as well, where we get 2 different teams out there competing against one another, and that can be FCS versus FBS. Is there putting you on the spot because we have time, is there a storyline that you are most intrigued by at the HBCU level coming out this spring?
Just the new coaches, installing their programs, and from what you have, at Delaware State to Norfolk State, to Tennessee State. I mean, you have some high profile coaches coming in to HBCU ranks at this stage. We talked about Deshaun Jackson at Delaware State. We talked about Mike Vick, at Norfolk State. Obviously when you look at, what Tennessee State has done, coming late into the situation and getting a really, really good opportunity to have a head coach there replace Eddie George, seeing how quick, and I don't know how much they're going to install, whether on the field or off at Tennessee State. We'll get into that later, but just the new fresh blood and seeing if these guys who are first-time head coaches, are they really about the grind or is it just about the brand? And I'm looking forward to see how Delaware State quickly develops and how Norfolk State does as well.
That's our pick 6 this week. It is spring football storylines that we're most intrigued by, I'm most intrigued by. We'll get to that, not in the next segment, but the segment after that. Let me talk to you guys real quick about next segment, set it up for you just a little bit. Like I said, there was a great article written titled "At Black Colleges, a Stubborn Gender Enrollment Gap Keeps Growing" for the New York Times. Clyde McGrady, New York Times national correspondent, is going to join us. So right now there is, and there's always been a gap between, at the higher education level, between black women and black men. And right now that gap is widening. Even as interest in HBCUs and overall enrollment at HBCUs increases, the gap between men and women applying, or boys and girls, young men, young women applying, is widening. Way more young women are applying than young men. And I'm not sure if I've ever shared with you. I think I've shared with you. I don't know if I've shared with the people my college recruitment story. Okay. Where I was at private school. They said, hey, they were real big on going to college because it's private school, right? Real big on going to college. you guys gonna meet with the college counselor at this time. Everybody's got their college counselor they need to meet to for a one-on-one. And when you meet with the counselor, you need to have these 5 things done. Boom, 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 boom. Great, ready, break. It's my time to meet with my college counselor. And he's like, all right, what do you have done? Nothing. CJ, you hadn't thought about it at all? Nope. What are you doing? Why do you? And then he just takes a deep sigh. Just sighs. Shout out Coach Klausner. Great conversation we had, because I frustrated him off the top. Not unaccustomed to doing that, right? Like I'm a frustrating person. I know when I be frustrating people.
Hold on. Give me an example real quick of the boom, 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 boom. What are those things? An example of what you didn't get done.
Tough school you like to apply to. Easy school that you like to apply to. Then it was stuff like class size.
What mattered to you?
What matters?
Yes.
And so I was like, okay, I'm not doing any of that. I got actual work to do that I'm not doing. You think I'm gonna do some of this? Just stuff make you be introspective and think about this decision, because it's a big decision.
Right.
And so he's like, okay, CJ, let me ask you a question. Big school, small school. Big school, small school, medium school. So he's asking me questions, and I'm one-wording them, and that's all he wants. City or country? Country. Big school, small school, medium school, small school. All right, what do you really want when you stop and think about it? It's like, okay, I know I want to go to a HBCU. It's a private school, Montgomery Bell Academy, all white. I was one of 5 black kids to graduate in my graduating class. It was only 117, but still, 5 of us were black, so 112 were white or something else. He's like, what's an HBCU? So now I got to explain to him what HBCU is. He's like, oh my gosh, okay, all right. He apologized on behalf of all white people also in that meeting, Mike. He said, okay, HBCU, got it. Here we go. Here's the HBCUs. And he pulls out the Princeton Review, which has all of the colleges listed in there. And so we're just going through, ticking off HBCUs, right? Boom, boom, boom. I know the names of them. He knows the names of them. He didn't realize they were HBCUs. He's just ticking them off. He's like, all right, CJ, it's over 100 HBCUs. How are we going to narrow it down? It's like, okay, well, I want to be around some women. Said, oh, here we go. Here we go. Now let's do it. And the HBCUs I applied to, every single one of them, you had to have a male-female ratio, which isn't that hard. I had a male-female ratio in mind. I needed 65% female, 35% male. Okay. I felt like that gave me the best chance of finding somebody. Right. So that's what I was into. Right. Of the 35% male, routinely, and this is in 2005 or 2004 rather, routinely, of that percentage of male, which was always significantly smaller than the percentage of female students, 70 to 80% of the dudes on campus were freshmen. So not only is it hard to, and it's only gotten worse. Not only back then was it hard to get black boys into college, it was damn near impossible to get them to stay once they got there. And that's gotten worse over time. And so we're going to talk to Clyde McGrady of the New York Times about that and see what can be done to fix it. And why it is the way that it is. So that's coming up next on HBCU Huddle in the Built For Tough Studios on Grind City Media.
I never in a million years would have ever thought that John Cena's final run would be as a heel.
I love it.
I love it.
Once they saw this from The Rock.
They knew it. Everybody knew it except for Cody, which was so good.
Great camera work by WWE.
And then the kick. Yeah, I don't think WWE gets enough credit for the camera work and the production quality. I mean, it is incredible.
Tune in to Grind City Wrestling weekly on the Grind City Media app and on the Grind City Media YouTube channel.
We are in March, which is Women's History Month.
True.
And we were talking about how do we kick off the show? What can we talk about? And we were like, why don't we talk about women's shoes? The Sabrina one. Okay.
Can't go wrong. Right? That's a good shoe.
And the 2, you could argue, is even better. But the one's fine.
You can't have the 2 without the 1.
Yeah. In the month of February, the Sabrina 2 was the 2nd most worn shoe in the NBA in minutes played.
The Sneak Fest Show, live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on Grind City Media on X, YouTube, and the official Grind City Media mobile app.
Debo traded from San Francisco to the Commanders for a 5th-round pick. There's no other sport where you would get a player of his ilk for a 5th-round pick.
Over under total yards for Debo. If they set it at 1,000, you think he hits that over?
Total yards?
Total yards from scrimmage, total yards.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The Odds Couple, live at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Would you mind standing in front so everybody could get a good glimpse of this? This can't be the look of the season. This is not the look of the season, Jessica. Like.
Tune in to the Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt, live every weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Welcome back in, everybody. HBCU Huddle, built for tough studio. CJ Hurt, Mike Wallace, pleased right now to be joined by Clyde McGrady of the New York Times, national correspondent, wrote the article titled "At Black Colleges, a Stubborn Gender Enrollment Gap Keeps Growing." Clyde, thank you so much for joining us today, man. How's everything going?
It's going well. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you. It was a great article. I read it and immediately thought, okay, I got to try and reach out to this brother and get him on, because this has been something that's been an issue since the 70s, right from the article, where I think that, if I remember correctly, it was 38% black male to 62% black female. Correct, Clyde?
Yeah, that's correct. It was 38% in 1976.
And why did you want to delve into this topic in particular?
It sort of came out of our election coverage. I was looking at Georgia and I saw some stat that really popped out to me about black women in Georgia. I think 40% of them have a college degree compared to around 27, 28% of black men. It just made me think, wow, that's probably going to have some ramifications for, black society, black wealth creation, black politics going forward. And so, I did some more digging, and then Richard Reeves over at the American Institute of Boys and Men had this study about the growing gender gap at HBCUs. And, I'm here in DC, and I saw the stat about Howard. So I thought, this would be sort of a great place to ground this story.
Clyde, thanks a lot again for joining us. This is Michael Wallace here. Where you are is near and dear to my heart. I'm a Washington, D.C. native, born and raised, grew up not too far from Howard University in that corridor there. My daughter got her undergraduate degree at Howard University and is now at Florida A&M. So the scene that you painted so vividly in your piece, wonderfully done, it's one that I remember when I went, going to visit her and growing up and being around that campus as well. Just to give our viewers and listeners a little bit of background on you, I've read that you're born and raised and grew up in rural Georgia, went to undergrad at University of Georgia, I believe, and then kind of matriculated from there, worked at the Washington Post and now at the New York Times, covering race, politics, social justice, and a number of different things. And this is kind of sort of how you got into this piece here. What struck me about the piece that you wrote too was sort of the how the young black men on these campuses are feeling in terms of being sort of isolated in a way and trying to struggle to find their own groupings and sort of support systems. From those kind of numbers, what was that challenge like for you when you spoke to a couple of the students around that campus, the males? Most people think when you hear, oh man, it's going to be 7-to-1 ratio, yep, male to female, female to male, it's a benefit. But in a lot of ways, these young men are still developing. What are some of the challenges that they're facing, being sort of in the extensive minority of population at these HBCUs?
Yeah, so this is in talking with administrators and researchers and people who studied this problem. it sort of shows up at the collegiate level, but it starts much earlier, elementary school, you know, K through 12. We know the statistics about Black boys finishing high school. We know that's an issue. And so a lot of them talked about you trying to fit in on campus or overcoming the belief that college is not something for them or a place that they belong. And they talk about their friends sort of having similar impressions or believing that, you know, as a man, you need to earn money as quickly as possible, and that college may not be, it's sort of seen as a luxury that they can't afford. It's delayed income earning. Yes, you earn more money, I believe something close to like $1 million over the course of your lifetime, you know, college degree versus high school diploma, but that may be seen as a luxury, and you must immediately start earning. So some people don't go. And so they kind of struggle to create this sense of community. And I know at Howard and several other schools, they're trying to build these initiatives that allow Black men to come together, maybe talk about their concerns and anxieties. I know at Howard, it's called the Men of the Mecca initiative that Calvin Hadley, a provost there, is running, but that's sort of it, sort of just, you know, a broader thing I think that's, you know, happening in society, this sense of maybe isolation or alienation among young men, and it is showing up on college campuses as well.
On that topic about the experiences that the Black young men are having on campus, is it changing because there are fewer of them than in years past? Is it changing the overall college experience for everybody, not just the young men, but the young women young women also?
Yeah, I was struck by how much the women were noticing it too. I wouldn't say I'm surprised by it, but I think it is notable that this is a thing that they are thinking about. And you know, you mentioned that dating ratio. Again, this trend of more women being in college or at HBCUs, this has been going on for a long time. But now it's, you know, it's gotten to sort of historic lows. And, you know, I wrote about this in the piece. You kind of talk to the men about, say, like dating, and, you know, they'll have this sheepish grin, right? Because they know that they sort of have an advantage with dating on campus, right? But the women tended to be thinking more long-term about this. And it's not that they're going to college to, you know, meet their husbands, because I think that's kind of a rare thing. But, you know, when you're talking about family formation and what the community is going to look like, and, you know, building resources together, this is a long-term thing that they think about. And so when it comes to the experience now, I think it shows up on campus in the leadership. I remember one of the young men talking about how he said, you know, women run the place. And I think some women talked about how they, a lot of them hold leadership positions, you know, on campus. And sometimes the men can feel like a double minority.
Yeah, and that's certainly true. And like you said, this is, you know, this is age old. You know, I mean, CJ, you were just talking during the break or coming into the segment about the ratio when you were looking at colleges. I know when I got to Grambling State University, it was, you know, probably 4 to 1. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, in terms of female to male when I was there.
Not to cut you off, Mike. Yeah. I know when I was Tuskegee from 05 to 09, mm-hmm. and 08 I started the upper level courses in my biology degree. Mm-hmm. 4 dudes in class, right? Yeah. Class of 40, 45 students in whatever auditorium we had at the time, and 4 or 5 of us would be dudes.
Yeah. I mean, so those numbers have been extreme. You know, Clyde, we'd be remiss if we got you out here without asking you about sort of the federal, you know, and some of the legislation that is coming through now via executive orders through the Trump administration, or what we've seen over the last, you know, 2-3 years, in terms of pushes to, you know, eliminate some of the racial or gender-based initiatives that can promote, you know, or lead to pathways for African Americans and others to get to college. How much of that is going to be an impediment, or how much of it has been an impediment based on some of your initial research? And what are some of the ways that the group that you talked to, you talked about the man that runs the agency for young boys, how are they navigating or circumventing some of those barriers that are coming through federally as it relates to getting young black men on college campuses and keeping them there?
Yeah, this is a concern for some of the researchers that I spoke with, because I believe it was last Wednesday that the Trump administration, asked the Supreme Court to allow them to cut $600 million in grants for education funding. Some of those programs are teacher training and readiness programs. One of them, I think, was actually a judge ordered it reinstated. I'm not sure the exact legal status of that at the moment, but it was a residency program that trained, teachers from underrepresented communities and tried to build pipelines. And of course, that included Black males, because this research has shown that, having Black male teachers is crucial and beneficial for young Black men. And, that was a program that was aimed at getting more of those teachers into the pipeline. And so even if the program does get reinstated, are people really going to be writing grants for programs like that going forward? And are those programs going to survive? And if a cut, it could be a problem that worsens as far as having young Black male teachers, which is already, again, they're not very many of them to begin with. And so much about this is, the cultural expectations of young Black men. And if they can't see that path forward, then it does get harder to make the case to them to go to four-year college.
Clyde, where can people find some more of your work, and where can they follow you at on social?
Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky as C.A. McGrady, and of course you can go to nytimes.com and search Clyde McGrady or any of the other great journalism that we have there.
Clyde, I love that picture of John Lewis in the background. I had spent some time across the street from Fisk University. That's one of my family's favorite civil rights leaders, favorite politicians all time. Thank you so much for taking time out and joining us. It was a great conversation, man.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. Enjoyed it.
Clyde McGrady, New York Times national correspondent, wrote an article titled "At Black Colleges, a Stubborn Gender Enrollment Gap Keeps Growing." If you hadn't read it, go check it out.
Yeah.
It's great. It's an important conversation to have. On the other side, we're going to continue to discuss this topic a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we'll get to our pick six, our 6 HBCU spring football storylines that we're most looking forward to. Up next on HBCU Huddle in the Built for Tough studios on Grind City Media.
We touched on this earlier, the panel here, about what really has been the mainstay of the Grizzlies, and that's Jaren Jackson Jr. Trip has just been awesome.
He's posting guys up. He's stronger than he's ever been. He's physical, and he's scoring all type of ways.
Hey, Grizzlies fans, be sure to tune in to Grizbeat, where the panel and I break down all things Grizzlies and take a look at the rest of the NBA as well. The show is live every Wednesday, 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Tony was the defensive guy, but Zebo was the offensive guy. So you could speak to this. It's way worse when you're getting doubled, right?
You got triple. I had went through that for it. When I was in Portland, me on the team, you got triple. You hear me, Rose? You can't talk about those. You got to talk about triples.
You got triple team.
This man was scoring on 3 dudes.
Swing, TA.
The Chris Vernon Show, live on weekdays at noon on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app. We will get into all things Grizzlies, but first and foremost, a big congratulations to the Memphis Tigers for locking up at least a share of the AAC title. First time since joining the American Athletic Conference that they are regular season conference champs.
Tune in to the Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt, live every weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
You've coached a lot of different versions of the SEC, and obviously there's never been one deeper than this. What's it like been coaching in this?
The reason for the league being so good is the commitment. Commitment to coaching, commitment to facilities, commitment to the NIL across the board. There is not anybody in our league that's not investing in all those things.
The Gary Parrish Show, live on weekdays at 10 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Welcome back in, everybody. HBCU Huddle, built for tough studios, Grind City Media. A special thank you again to Clyde McGrady for joining us on a very important topic about educating young black men. We were talking during the break, Mike, and I was sharing with you about my nephew. The way to solve this, unfortunately, it's got to be solved well before they get to the higher education level. And my nephew right now, I'm fearful. Behind the scenes, personal stuff. We share personal anecdotes on this. We family, whatever. Nervous about him right now in kindergarten. In kindergarten, he's already having the really don't like school thing. Don't really enjoy reading. I told his aunt not too long ago, I don't like reading. She's like, oh no, reading's fun. He's like, nah, I think we should burn all the books. It's like, wait a second, you're 5. What are we doing here? Like, really nervous about that. This is somebody who is very curious. This is somebody who loves to learn, right? Like he can name all of the dinosaurs ever created and tell you whether or not at 4 he was doing this, whether or not they were carnivores or herbivores and what period they lived in. So very clearly, there's a thirst for knowledge there, some type of knowledge, some type of learning there. All of a sudden, he gets put into school now. Now it's like, no, I don't like that at all. I don't want to do that at all. And so that's where it starts. That's why having black teachers and black male teachers in this particular case is so very important in primary schools, because they, for whatever reason, find a way to reach those black students, particularly the black boys.
It's heartbreaking, because you're absolutely right. And Clyde McGrady, first off, let me back up and just, I had a sense of pride just interviewing and talking to him and sharing, this platform with Clyde, because when I looked across, I saw a young black man who's working at the New York Times, who's working at the Washington Post, 2 high-level media, traditional media institutions. That was my pathway. Those places were my goals to eventually work for. And to see him in Washington, D.C. As a young African-American man writing some important stories in a traditional media format, that spoke to my heart. So, shout out to Clyde and everything that he's doing. And that's certainly a young man that I look forward to following and continuing to follow his work. It is important work. And you're absolutely right, CJ. This disdain for education, particularly in the African-American community among boys, is something that we have to get a better handle on. And I think it starts in the home before the kid and our kids get to schools. And our schools have to do the job of making education fun and finding areas and pathways that these young kids can latch on to. Because like you said, everything that your nephew studied and wanted to be excited about, what does it take to get? It takes reading periodicals. It takes looking at magazines. Yeah. It takes reading. Yeah. So it's not that, I don't like reading. It's that no one's guided me and has set an expectation of how I need to go about doing this.
And why it's important.
Yeah.
All right, sight words. Great. Now I got to sit down and I got to look at these sight words, and I got to learn these sight words, and it's hard learning sight words.
Yeah.
But if I go to Uncle CJ's house, he's got a whole big, Mike, the book is bigger than him, and he's 5. It's like this big of dinosaurs and dinosaur pictures. And Uncle CJ can point to a pterodactyl, which I don't know if you guys know how to spell pterodactyl, but it's spelled with a damn P in the beginning. Right? And he can point to that word, and I know that's a pterodactyl, because that is a sight word for me.
Yes.
But for some reason, cat and pterodactyl, they're different in my mind. It's fun about pterodactyl, to your point. It's fun about pterodactyls. It's not fun about cats. Like, what are we doing here? And you're right. School has got to be a tad bit more fun.
He's got to go to a school where he can find the equivalent of an Uncle CJ at the school, too.
Right.
Because that's the first thing that we notice when we get into schools and elementary schools and middle schools, is that the divide starts to happen there, specifically in junior high and middle schools. Yeah. Because you see young women and young girls taking school a lot more seriously than you do boys. Boys become frisky, disciplinary issues and all of those kind of things. And we need to galvanize our young men, which is why I think some of the work that we do at Grizzlies Prep, the city's all-boys school, is so important. I was just there this morning, doing some board work over there. And it's not to toot my horn, but it's just when I go in there and I see the enthusiasm. This is such a key age to get these young men, because we're trying to create pathways for them to get to middle school, high school, and on to college. If we could just get them to college, you realize that's your first taste of independence. That's your first taste of, hey, I can do whatever I want. I can eat whatever I want. I can get up on whenever I want. I can sign up for whatever classes I want. I can go watch a basketball game. I can go hang out on just get onto the campus. And then you open up your eyes to all of the opportunities that you have there. But that's the challenge, getting our young black men from elementary school through middle school and high school onto a college campus. And if we can get them onto a college campus, the battle is almost won right there.
And the war is in elementary school. That is where the fight has to be won. You're spot on. You're 100% correct. Grizzlies Prep is doing a tremendous job of that. Keeping kids engaged is what matters so much. Because you want to know why I could do calculus in college? Because I could do geometry in high school. And I could do geometry in high school because I could do algebra in middle school. And I could do algebra in middle school because I could do multiplication in the 4th grade, right? And by the 4th grade, you can look at a child's history in school, how many suspensions they have, what their grades look like, how engaged they are, how actively they're participating in class. And you can look at them and say, oh yeah, that one is maybe not going to college, but that one's going to be okay. And this one over here, I know is going to jail. I know this one over here isn't going to make it, because everything builds on top of itself. And so the sight words build on top of the smaller stories, which build on top of the chapter books, which build on top of the textbooks that you have to be able to read and comprehend. Don't even get me started on standardized testing, right? It all stacks on top of one another. And so if your foundation is poor, you're just not going to be able to withstand the onslaught of requirements necessary to be a good learner. There was a moment, a lot of personal stories being shared by me on this show.
You're good.
But there was a moment last year, fall, school had just started. Some kids, elementary school kids, we stay right around the corner from the Melrose football field. So there's an elementary school right there. I'm unfamiliar with the name of it right now. Some elementary school age kids with some of their older cousins, kids in the neighborhood, what have you, bobbing up and down the street, just having a good time. I love to see it. Nothing wrong with that. A teacher screams out, hey. They had just completed dismissals. He screams out, hey, screams the little boy's name out. Little boy's 6 years old. Come here. And little boy comes running over. What's up, Mr. So-and-so? Mr. Black teacher. Where were you today? It's my uniform wasn't clean. My mama said I couldn't go to school without the uniform. It was really, really dirty. And our washer broke, so I couldn't come to school today. It's man, don't worry about the uniform. I need you in class. Class isn't the same without you. If you're not here, I'm sad without you. I need you here for me. Can you come tomorrow? Is it? He's yeah, my uniform won't be clean. He's that's fine. Come tomorrow. I'll talk to the principal. I just need you in class. And it was that moment. It was yeah, that's important. Too often, I think, with the behavior issues, with the tardiness, with the absenteeism that is prone to be the case, especially in impoverished communities, lower income communities. It is, that boy is just bad. That kid's just bad. And that kid could really use a break, or use somebody to look him in the eye and say, hey, you're not bad. You're active. You got a lot of energy. I love it. I love you. I need you. You've got to come here so I can help you and you can help me. And we can channel that energy. We can channel that. My nephew, again, pterodactyl cat. Don't want to learn about cat. Tell you about bronchiosauruses. Right? I'm not sure the relationship with the teacher. But and don't want to pit too much on the teachers, because they've got a hard enough job, especially right now with the way things are going on their end. But it's, hey, what is he like at home? He could do this at home. He can't do that at school. Why is that the case? And then trying to find a way to grab as many of those, prevent as many of those kids from falling through the cracks as humanly possible. It's tough, man, but it takes a village. It'll take an entire community to figure this out. I look forward to, like you said, following and keeping in touch with Clyde McGrady. Good stuff over at the New York Times. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we will talk about the spring football storylines before we get out of here, Mike.
Yes.
I see people who look like me and were born probably in the same decade as me, watching all of these young people jump into the transfer portal and saying it's ridiculous. You got to stop thinking about this like it's a normal college experience. It is not. You know what the priority is? Maximize your earning potential for every year of eligibility you have left. That's what this is about now. These are jobs.
The Gary Parrish Show, live on weekdays at 10 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Yesterday was the talk of the town. It was a cow on the side of the road.
Do you live close to a movie theater? I'm just curious because maybe the cow was trying to go to the movies.
Tune in to the Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt, live every weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
The new issue of Slam, the cover dropped, and it is our friend Jaron Jackson Jr. on the cover.
And shout out to you, Lane.
Yeah.
You kept, well, I mean, we knew about it, but you kept this a secret the whole time. So shout out to you for
I wrote
putting
this
this
story.
together.
We did the photo shoot a couple weeks ago here on a Sunday afternoon in the practice court. The Sneak Fest Show, live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on Grind City Media on X, YouTube, and the official Grind City Media mobile app. Grizz Nation gets set for tip-off 1 hour before every Grizzlies home game with the warm-up show. Get the latest news, notes, and analysis live from courtside at FedEx Forum.
Who's going to be the tougher team that rebounds and prevents second-chance opportunities?
Join me, Lang Whitaker, along with Michael Wallace, Jessica Benson, and other personalities from Grind City Media, Memphis, and around the NBA. 1 hour before every home game, live at Grind City Media on X, YouTube, and the official Grind City Media mobile app.
All right, everybody, welcome back into HBCU Huddle. CJ Hurt, Mike Wallace. Let's get to the pick six this week, Mike.
Yes, sir.
6 storylines to watch, 6 spring football storylines. Let's start over in Jackson, Mississippi at Jackson State. Nathan Rimbert, second leading receiver in the SWAC last season from Mississippi Valley State, transfers into a program where Jacobian Morgan is back at quarterback and Isaiah Spencer, the team's leading receiver last season with 35 receptions for 660 yards, is also returning. That passing game starts lighting up. Look out. Look out. If they can push the ball down the field, they're going to repeat is something. Repeat as SWAC East Division champs, or repeat as SWAC champs, or repeat as Celebration Bowl champs. That's going to be a fun group to watch this spring.
Yeah, no question about it. Jackson State, man, is that offense is there. TC Taylor has it humming, and you know he's going to be bringing in a bunch of transfer portal guys that are only going to want to play and contribute to that.
They did it running the ball with Irv Mulligan and the rest of the running backs in the backfield last season. If they can do it completely different this year, oh boy, that's some coaching job by TC Taylor. High-profile coaches will come in at number 5. High-profile coaches for spring practices. Norfolk State, we talked about them. Their spring game is April the 19th for Mike Vick, first spring game as head football coach. Deshaun Jackson's attempts to change the culture at Delaware State begins now. They're at practices now. There have been a couple of articles I've read about him keeping the energy up, real big on the energy. Delaware State, I didn't realize how bad they were. They've been bad. They've won one football game against a D1 opponent the past 2 seasons. I think they beat Virginia Lynchburg or one of the Virginia schools, D2 schools, 2 years ago. And so they've got 2 wins. Overall, they got 2 wins the past 2 seasons, and their last winning season was 2012, 14 years ago.
Yeah, that team is just, that program, they need a lot of help. They need a lot of resources. They have a brand name right now, and let's see if that can boost them to a higher level of expectations.
Next up on the spring football storyline, so watch, we did the first segment was about spring football and the importance of spring football. No spring practice for TSU and others. TSU, because Coach Barlow got there so late, just not going to be able to do traditional spring practices, spring games. There'll be a lot of weightlifting, a lot of film watching, and a lot of walkthroughs, but no pad on pad type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that was just the sort of the downside of making that hire so late. It was late March by the time they got Barlow in there, and it's one of those situations where, you know, it's just tough to really put together a program to get that team through the spring when you're dealing with transfer portals as well too. He has to really build this thing from scratch at this point.
Virginia Union replacing Jada Byers, 2024 Black College Football National Player of the Year, one of the best running backs in all of D2, the three past years. Incredible FAMU's quarterback battle as they look to try and replace Daniel Richardson over there for the Rattlers as well. That's another big one for me. And then the G-Men, Mickey Joseph saying, hey, we're going to run the football this year. The commitment to the run that Mickey Joseph says Grambling State is going to have. G-Men were bottom 3 in the SWAC in rushing attempts and rushing yards last season. So those are the spring football storylines I'm keeping an eye on this year.
You know what? The FAMU quarterback battle is one. They always have someone ready to step in and take over there. I mean, they've been solid at the quarterback position for the last 5-6 years. I expect that to continue to be the case for FAMU. You know, replacing a guy like Jada Byers, you know, that kind of special talent comes through rarely when you talk about the Division II ranks. He left such some big footsteps to fill at Virginia Union.
Set all the records at Virginia Union.
Yes, that's going to be a tremendous story right there. And then, hey, man, look, it's 2025. Who's getting excited about saying, hey, we're going to run the football? You know what I'm saying? Running the football doesn't generate a whole bunch of excitement. You know, listen, we committed to the past. We got a big-time transfer quarterback in last year. It didn't work out. You know, Mickey Joseph, man, we love him. We sat down with him at the SWAC Media Day last year. We'll probably do the same thing again this year. It's just got to be something else to help sustain that program. Great start. Grambling didn't finish well at all. So, hey, I don't want to say he's on a hot seat, but he's definitely feeling some warm temperatures around there by if he doesn't get this thing turned around pretty quickly.
It's not just the weather with the warm temperatures, right? I got you. Hey, that was HBCU Huddle for this week. Thank you guys so very much for hanging out with us on this episode. We look forward to talking to you again real soon. We're going every other week now, so we won't be on next week. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. For Mike, I'm CJ. Everybody take care.